Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Nicole Engelbert, and I am so excited to be hosting today's Customer Spotlight, featuring one of my absolute favorite customers, the University of Wyoming. Wyoming is absolutely famous in the higher education industry, and it came forward so clearly to me a few months back when I was hosting a webinar with a panel of institutions around the country. And absolutely spontaneously, one of the participants gave a shout out to the University of Wyoming and specifically to our guest today, thanking her for all the support that the institution had given them throughout their own cloud migration journey. So I expect that we will get some wonderful feedback, wonderful insight today. So from here, before we jump into the discussion, I want to introduce our road trip video. This summer, Oracle went on a virtual road trip across the country, including a very special stop at the University of Wyoming to check in and see how they're doing. And this is what they had to say.
We're so glad you stopped by our beautiful state on your road trip across the country. 2020 has been a crazy year for universities all around the world, and this school year, we've really had to rethink our way of doing things. But, like any good cowboy, we have the grit to continue forward, and we'd love to show you some of the things we're doing to create an innovative experience for our students. Come check it out!
At the University of Wyoming, we know the world needs more epic innovation. That's why our professors conduct research using one of the world's most powerful supercomputers. That's why our students can create anything they imagine in multi-million-dollar innovation centers. We work and play in 3D. We earn NASA grants to study space materials. With our pioneering spirit, Wyoming has taken the lead in blockchain digital information growth. When we face challenges like COVID-19, we find ways to do things better and meet the needs of our country and communities. We've been bucking the system since 1886, meaning things that aren't possible anywhere else happen here.
We are so excited to bring you their story of business process transformation and how they are driving a strategy to make their vision of a modernized ERP system a reality. So please join me in welcoming Laura Shevling, who's the Senior Director, Financial Systems and Business Optimization, the University of Wyoming. Laura?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. I wanted to give you just a little more background on the University of Wyoming. We were actually formed in 1886, which was 4 years before Wyoming became a state. So we started as Wyoming University, not the University of Wyoming. We are the state's only four-year public institution, serving about 11,000 students, and we have 7 colleges on our campus, ranging from the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources all the way to our College of Law. We also, our last claim to fame is that we are the highest public university in the nation at 7,200 feet.
Oh, that is fantastic. You learn something new kind of every day. So Laura, we're going to jump right into the questions. Over the last few years, the University of Wyoming has moved from a range of decades-old back office systems and a literal sea of manual spreadsheets to modern cloud-based applications from Oracle. What got you started on that journey?
Yeah, so really what started our journey is that we needed a modern, streamlined ERP system. Our prior system that we were using on campus was a legacy on-premise one that we launched in 1997. And between 1997 and the go live of our ERP system, we really only took the minimum upgrades. So we took the tax updates, things we have to do, but we never had a focus on business process improvement, business redesign, looking at efficiency, metrics, things like that. And we were all paper-based. So a lot of our financial and HR processes started on paper and then ended with a back office business person rekeying all of that information into the system. So it was highly inefficient.
Oh, absolutely. So prior to using Oracle and Procurement Cloud, what were some of the issues the university needed to address within your procurement processes, and how was it impacting your organization and the employees?
So a big one that we found was really a lack of transparency in our old system. Because we were paper-based, we really could not see the status of any transaction. It could have been sitting in someone's desk, it could have been walking across campus. So with the transition to the cloud, within minutes of getting a call from either like a supplier wondering what's the status of a payment, or even a senior leader following up on various items, I can just log into the system and let them know where that status is, versus having to say, I'll get back to you, or let me put you on hold. And it's just much more efficient that we can see all that stuff ourselves. We do, as a public organization, have a much more open ERP system, but that's one of the great things about Oracle is it does allow for that flexibility. So as long as our employees take our system training, they can go in and see all of that. And that just makes business much more efficient and fast, because as you know, if you call the university, you might not call the right person, but generally people can always answer your questions because we always do have access to that system.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're so glad to be a partner with you all on this journey. But aside from the increasing transparency aspect, what are some of the other benefits that you've seen kind of after having gone live with Oracle ERP Cloud?
There's a lot of them, so I'll just try to hit on a few of the highlights. The first one really is better financial reporting. So in our old system, we would literally compile all these spreadsheets to get a snapshot of financial reporting and budget actuals. It wasn't real time, and that, as you might imagine, made it really hard to plan for revenue changes. Further, we couldn't really roll up our financial reports, so you could see things at the unit level, but you really couldn't see them at the divisional level, and that was very problematic as you're looking at changing revenue and budget reductions and all the things that come with that. The second thing that worked very well for us is that we were able to actually roll out strategic sourcing catalogs. And this wasn't something that we even had the focus on in our old system, but when we went to the Oracle Cloud, it was easy to roll them out. So since we've been live, we have actually rolled out 4 of them. And our one for our computer has saved us over $2.7 million. So again, in higher ed, as we want to keep our funding focused on our students, that's a great savings for us to be able to work on. The third one, and this is arguably my favorite, is that we really do not use as much paper, which makes us much more efficient. So for example, in our old system, for me to reconcile my corporate card, I would have to take my paper receipt and tape it on an 8x12 piece of paper. I couldn't just turn in a receipt, had to tape it on the piece of paper, and then hand it to my accountant, who would rekey in all of that information into the system. Versus now, all I need to do is take a picture of it, and then I upload it to the system and get it reconciled. It's much more efficient. Fourth, we've really seen an increase in our financial controls, and we did financial controls in our prior system, but with the Oracle requisition process, we've actually been able to transition a lot of our business onto requisitions and getting that pre-approval for purchases before they become a purchase order and then the invoice, versus just processing invoices from our end users. And then finally, the system really does allow us to be more flexible in how we set up our structures. So for example, this system can be both centralized or decentralized, and that's given all of our colleges, which are all very unique, the ability to kind of set up business how they would like. So for example, on our more decentralized ones, we do let people use the delegate system in the expense reports. So our researchers who really want to spend their times in their labs and not doing administrative work, they really like to use that delegate feature to reconcile their P cards. A lot of our other ones who are out traveling and just want to get reimbursed like to just submit the expense reports on their own. And both processes are available within the system, and we let campus use whatever one fits their college or unit the best.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I'm sure you're not sad to see that cellophane tape go away from your desk, but having $2.7 million for teaching, learning, and research is certainly kind of worth the journey. But Laura, what would you consider ultimately to be the most important, or perhaps might we say the most impactful results for the University of Wyoming from this move to the cloud?
And overall, that's just the fact that we got on a modern, streamlined system. And what's really unique about the Oracle Cloud is that we do quarterly updates. And that's something that I will admit to you, when we first started doing that, we were a little nervous. But as we got the hang of managing them, they're actually quite easy to manage, and they've become really excited to us. So we always do big release notes meetings where we get our finance team together and our HR team together, and we go through the release notes and we say, oh, that looks super exciting. We got to make sure we test that one. We've got to look at it. And so it's been really exciting to see the system grow and develop as a result of business changes and business needs across campus.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny, I hear from many institutions around the world even that those quarterly updates are a bit a bit much to get used to, but once they do, it becomes the bedrock of building that institutional agility and becoming more resilient. And they couldn't imagine it kind of any other way. Let's take a little pivot if we're going to go on our theme of resiliency and agility. Now, certainly easily accessible and reliable data has been kind of absolutely critical for organizations and institutions to shift gears in this kind of rapidly developing crisis. Can you share a bit about what this has been like for the University of Wyoming?
Yeah. So like all the other universities across the nation and across the world, COVID-19 really became real for us about spring break. And during that time, we actually transitioned totally remotely and took all of our classes, and in the matter of 2 weeks said, please don't come back after spring break, stay home, stay safe. And so it was quite the big change for the institution, but because of our systems and just because of how we structured our organization, we were able to make that and ensure student and employee safety on campus.
That's amazing. I mean, moving 11,000 students to online learning couldn't have been an easy task. My goodness, we might even say it was a heroic task. What would you consider some of the other challenges that your institution faced?
Yeah, so some of them were just determining who are essential workers, who really needs to be on campus, who can we keep remote to keep more safe and really reduce density on campus. And in addition to that, a university is so much more than just online classes. There's research, there's outreach to the state. So all of our service delivery, how do we take that remote? How do we still provide and support both our state and our students? So that took getting creative. So for example, as students are back home, even if they're in their mom's basement, we offered all of our rec center classes online. So you could still hop in on Zoom, still get a workout, still get feeling good. And really, if you needed extra support during this time, we took our whole university counseling center and set that up online. So again, students could reach out and get that support they needed to make it through this difficult time.
My goodness, Laura, it's really incredible. I feel kind of like chills, kind of thinking about kind of all of that work and everything that the institution has done. How do you even begin to determine the staffing needs for such types of services?
Yeah, so we were really lucky to already be live on Oracle Cloud on both the HCM side and the ERP side. And using our systems really help us determine who those essential workers were. As we went remote and then slowly transitioned to a reopening of our campus plan, we realized that we really needed to know who had to be on campus, but they could socially distance. They could go to an office, they could shut their door, and then really who was working remotely. And that data was critical because it drove our testing pool. We had a really rigorous testing program on campus that if you're going to be on campus, we were testing you on a weekly basis to make sure that if anything started to spread, we could catch it and keep campus safe. So how we used our systems in that specific cases is we worked with our end user to determine what bucket those employees were, and we gathered all that information centrally, and then we used the HDL data loader, uploaded it to the system in new flex fields that we were able to create on the assignment and HCM, and then we built a report off of it. So we can pull that data in minutes to tell you who is where, and we did that whole process in about a week. That's how flexible and responsive this system can be.
Laura, I have to say, I remember very clearly Wyoming kind of setting out its plans for testing and being, might I even say, kind of blown away by how flexible and agile and progressive it was. Can you provide some specific examples of how you leverage this data to make those very necessary real-time decisions?
Yeah, so another kind of counter to the HR example I gave you is one on the finance side too. And early on, when we first went remote in March, we realized we're going to want to track on institutional spend. How much is this COVID crisis going to cost us? We weren't sure at that time how we were going to pay for it, but we knew we were going to provide masks, provide hand sanitizer, do enhanced cleaning, and all of that would come with a cost. So what we did is in our chart of accounts, we added a program code called COVID, and it was real quick. That takes about 5 minutes to add that to your system. So we added it to the system and communicated out to campus. And then I could use already existing reports that we had and just filter on transactions using that program code and get you an institutional spend in about 5 minutes. Further, once the federal government did provide some additional support via the CARES dollars, it was really easy for just us to leverage our Oracle PPM product that we already own and up and running that we manage all of our grants in and put these federal dollars in there. So then we got even more reporting. And again, that's a quick and easy setup. So we know exactly how much we've spent related to this virus.
Oh gosh, Laura, I that's amazing. I imagine a time kind of way out in the future, there's an accountant on your team who says, what is this COVID code that I see in the system? But certainly, I mean, there are a lot of new requirements that need to be managed, and you did it in an incredibly elegant, flexible way while maintaining actual regular business operations. I mean, let's take a step back. Can you talk a bit about the back office continuity plans? How did you keep the invisible but kind of critically essential kind of wheels in motion during this time?
Yeah, and for that, it was, again, I cannot emphasize this enough, really helpful to already be on our Oracle Cloud product. So when we made the transition to go remote, just for an easy example to share with you, within our division of financial affairs, we have about 70 employees. And of those 70, we all went remote except for one. And that one employee that was still there was the one who needed to print checks. We haven't totally gotten all of our suppliers on ACHs yet, but we're working that direction. So in a matter of just a couple of days, we were able to make that whole transition. Because if you think it through, logging in to work on a cloud-based system where your whole job is the same whether you're doing it from home or whether you're doing it from campus.
Only 1 in 70 financial affair employees had to be on campus during the pandemic, and you were able to keep up with everything and maintain the cycles to suppliers. That is incredibly impressive, kind of, Laura. Do you see this as temporary, or do you think that the success of working remotely will change in many ways the perspectives on remote working kind of over the long term at the university?
And I think originally we all thought this was temporary. But as we've gotten into and we realized the longevity of this, it has become more of a long-term solution. And I do think it's something that we'll consider moving forward, as people like, to a certain extent, like to work remotely. It is a positive thing that we can provide this extra benefit. It's easy for people to take some time, or if they need to go deal with family issues, they can still log in and get work done. So it's TBD on the long term, but I do think it has had a very positive impact, that realizing we can switch out of a lot of business processes to the back end and then still be a functioning, efficient university.
It's a brand new day, absolutely a brand new day. Now, Laura, as you know, I connect with customers kind of around the US and the world. We hear so many creative and inspiring ways that they are continuing to connect with their employees and keeping them motivated, particularly during this kind of ongoing crisis. Kind of what are kind of some of the things that the University of Wyoming is doing to nurture that sense of connection and to boost the morale of the faculty and the staff, and probably most importantly, the students during remote work and learning?
Yeah, so I think one of the most impactful things that the University of Wyoming has done is really demonstrated its support for students. So several months ago, early on when the pandemic first started, we actually launched a $2 million student support initiative. And so that included several things, one of which was continuing to pair students who no longer had access to their positions on campus due to COVID. We launched a fundraising campaign of over $500,000 to provide an emergency fund for our students. We provided technology, because again, as we ask our students to go remote, we want to make sure they have adequate laptops, computers, webcams, so they can stay connected and be successful. And finally, our student government also launched their own initiative and shared student stipends with our students who are most in need. And that really, I think, was impactful, not only for our students themselves, but our state, and letting them know how dedicated we were to getting our students healthy and safe throughout this pandemic.
That is wonderful. And certainly we see a lot of the research coming out suggesting that the institutions who have gotten this right and engage with students in this way kind of differentiate themselves in the market longer term, that the students will have a different kind of connection with Wyoming than perhaps they might have in the past. Okay, Laura, so we have some final questions for you. Now, the first question we want to get to it is, what were some of kind of the best decisions that you've made along this transformation? Looking back, the ones that, you really made that right choice.
So overall, I think one of the best decisions we made during this transformation was we actually launched a net new team. We took vacancies from across campus and kind of repurposed them, and we formed a business analyst team. And why this is so critical is on a cloud-based system, you kind of need that functional, technical person. You don't really need a traditional coder anymore. You need someone who understands business processes. And so that team has been critical to our success. Not only do they manage all of our upgrades, but they also manage any of our business process improvements that we might make with an upgrade or just outside of the upgrade cycle as part of normal business process improvement. And they have made a lot of difference. Our business analyst team were the ones that I referenced when I talked through our formal examples about the HDL data loader and using flex fields. That's the sort of team that knows the system and knows how it can be leveraged to really make business process improvements. And that's been critical to our success on campus.
Absolutely, Laura. I hear that so consistently, that moving to the business analyst model is not a nice to have, but almost a must have as institutions move to the cloud. And I do believe that institution that gave you a shout out on the panel referenced that absolutely specifically. So moving from the business analyst, what have been some of the biggest technical lessons that you've learned during your kind of business career?
So I think the biggest one that anyone in the technical field has learned is that no matter how much you test, sometimes things just go wrong. And again, that having that business analyst team that can be flexible and respond to maybe you missed a testing step has been really powerful for us. In really creating a team that is not afraid to ask questions, our team really focuses on clear, direct communication. There's no such thing as a silly question, because we found the more questions that we ask, the better answers we're going to get, and the more prepared we are when we make these changes.
Oh, absolutely. Test, and then test again is a good path to success with cloud, that is for sure. So I'm now going to ask you a somewhat personal question. What is the best part of your job? I mean, Laura, you have an unusual title. I think that title was perhaps created for you. What would you consider kind of the best part of it?
So I think the best part of my job is that I really get to work with a wide variety of people, and we get to make positive change every single day. So as higher ed changes and grows and we face budget reductions and things like that, knowing that I can work with a team to make people's lives easier is really important to me, because every dollar I can save you in processing a PO, processing a time card, things like that, we can take that and we can put that towards student support. We can put that towards faculty salaries, hire some high-powered faculty that are really going to give our students the experience of a lifetime. And so it's the most important to me to know every single day I get to be a part of that. And I get to take our dollars and spend them on our students and our faculty members.
Oh, that's wonderful. Laura, thank you so much. It's always such a joy and a pleasure to engage kind of with you. I feel like I always learn kind of a number of really great nuggets that I can take to other institutions. I'd also like to thank our audience for joining. I believe this has been a really amazing conversation talking about the migration to cloud. Let's keep it going and stay connected. To follow up and to learn more, please feel free to email us at customerspotlightseries_US@oracle.com, and we can help you get connected to the right team at Oracle. And please do tune in for our next Customer Spotlight. Thank you.